Welcome back. This is the third part of forensic audit. In this part, we will cover 17.4 and 17.5. And in the end, I'll share the notes in my Telegram channel. So do check out there. So, 17.4, the title says Ethical Considerations and Code of Conduct in Forensic Audit. So, it has two parts. One is ethical consideration, another is code of conduct. And this 17.4 has lot of pages and theory to read, but I have broken it into small parts and visually managed so that you are able to learn very easily and quickly. So the first is ethical considerations. There are certain areas where the forensic audit falls as well as ethic risk is there. So what all ethical considerations to be considered while doing this forensic audit? So the areas where these ethics are extended is mentioned here in this chart. So the first is discrimination part. So ethic risk is there in discrimination part. That is, the discrimination could be of age, disability, pay, race, pregnancy, religion, and gender. So these all are all the areas where the discrimination can happen. So consideration is to be given in this area. Second is health and safety. Health and safety, further there are certain areas mentioned where the violation has happened. So looking that, we have to learn where all violation can happen and the major areas. First is fall protection. The person works at a certain height, the person has to wear fall arrestor. Second is hazard. Hazard could be physical, chemical, any of the hazard. Third is respiration. If the person works in an area where dangerous chemicals are there, so the person has to wear the mask and all. So those areas to be covered. Scaffolding. Scaffolding refers to a wooden structure used to climb so that the person can work at a height and for construction or painting purpose. So those scaffolding is to be checked. Ladder, how much weight does the ladder carries. Machine guard is the defense just to protect the operators or the technicians who are working on and off the machine. Next is LOTO. LOTO is lockout and tagout. Lockout refers to the area where the energy device where the things could be manipulated and the safety is at high risk is locked out, and the place where it affects is a tag is tied to that area, that is known as tag out. And there is electrical wirings and all should be proper. Apart from this physical health and safety, in 2019 report, psychosocial risk is also prevalent, that is mental breakdown, stress and fatigue among the employees. So those consideration is also to be given in forensic audit. So next is social media and whistleblowing. Nowadays, everyone uses social media. So sometimes people use just to inform the wrong which is happening with them and to safeguard themselves. So this should be encouraged and it cannot be penalized. But if they use just to defame the business or the organization, so for those reasons, the organization has to stipulate online behaviors to be maintained. Okay. Another is non-disclosure. Non-disclosure, when a company engages with vendor or client, there are chances the intellectual property is leaked. So to avoid those, agreement should be formed, and if the information is stolen, the penalty should be imposed on those parties. And there is technology part. As cybercrime is significantly increasing, technology has to be checked on. Electronic surveillance must be carried out, and this should be disclosed with the employees even, and ethics is to be maintained just to not violate their privacy. Okay, so these are all the areas where ethical consideration is to be given. First is discrimination, health and safety, social media, non-disclosure, and technology part. Okay, now there are certain threats of auditor, which are divided into five parts. Auditor faces certain threats, so organization has to check whether they have this threat of these auditors. So the first is self-interest threat. When an auditor holds direct or indirect financial interest, then there is a self-interest threat. For example, if the auditor was appointed for the year 2022 and he was not paid the fees, and again he is appointed for the year 2023, so there are chances to get those fees. He may provide a report which is biased one, just a favorable one for the organization. So this is one of the threat. Another is self-review threat. When the auditor is auditing his own work, he has only made the financial statements. He or anyone of his firm has maintained the books, and they are just auditing their own work. Then the work would be on their own prejudice, and there is a threat for the organization of self review. Okay, and this advocacy threat, when the auditor is promoting his own client, this threat happens. For example, the auditor is assisting the client for selling the business, so there are chances that the values are all inflated and he supports in doing all those things, right? And there is familiarity threat. This threat happens when the auditor is very close to the person, the director, employees, officers, and is very familiar with. So this threat can happen. Okay. For example, there would be professional as well as personal relation with the organization members or the directors, employees. So this threat can happen. The last is intimidation threat, when the auditor is intimidated by any of the management or the directors, so to act accordingly, to write reports accordingly. So these are all threats. So these threats, eventually this threats causes a biased report. So these are known as threats of auditor. So you have to remember all this five. Okay, now the second part is code of conduct in forensic audit. So the code of conduct, there are three main code of conducts, that is standard of professional conduct, standard of examination, and standard of reporting. Okay, so auditor has to have code of conduct, and the code of conduct, one is this professional conduct, another is how he examines, and third is the reporting part. Okay, so we'll first see examination standard. So in examination standard, there are two. First of all, he does the examination of the books of accounts, right? So the examination must be very professional, legal, and efficiently. He has to do very alert and without any bias. Okay, he has to examine all the books and all the records. Another is the evidence. The evidence he collects. So he is the chain starts from the origin. Has the origin of the all the evidences, and he possesses all the evidences throughout the investigation. He has to preserve and disposition all with all integrity. Okay, so this is the standard to be maintained for examination. Another is for reporting. It is divided further into general and report content. How reporting he has to do. Reporting could be oral or written. It may include the witness report and all, but what he has not to do is he should not mislead. The report must not mislead. Okay, now what report content should have, that report content must have facts, conclusions, opinions, suggestion, recommendations. But what it should not have, it should not have that the people here are involved and are guilty, or they are innocent. This thing should not be written in those report. Okay, now the conduct, what are the professional conduct the auditor has to follow, okay, while doing the forensic audit. So the code of conduct, first is integrity. We all know the auditor must have integrity. Integrity is like there must not be any conflict of interest or friendship influence, and no criminal act, not biased one. Everything should be objective. Professional competence, the person must be competent, then only he must accept the proposal of doing forensic audit. If he needs certain help, then he can take referral help, and he has to study and he has to educate himself from the Association of Certified Fraud Examiner. Okay, and there is, while doing this, he has to maintain certain professional care, that is planning, proper planning. And if any of the employees or any of the person of his firm is working on it, then he has to supervise, and the things which they are submitting should be, must be relevant and with due diligence. Okay, now understanding with the client, while auditing is done, the scope and the limitations of the client is to be understood. Also, whatever changes they are providing, he must adapt accordingly. Okay, communication with the client, any of the findings he finds, he has to communicate all those significant findings. While he is communicating, confidentiality is also to be maintained, and only express the things whatever the order of the court is been given. Okay, so these are all the code of conduct part. code of conduct. One is professional examination reporting. In examination, how the examination is to be done, how the evidence is to be followed. Reporting is the general reporting on the what contents to be maintained. The professional one, professional conduct one is integrity, competence, and how would be the process, professional work, and the understanding the client, also communicating and while communicating the confidentiality clause also. Now we'll see how to reduce this risk. If I'm having a company, I'll think of how to reduce this ethics risk. Ethics is a very it plays a main role in organization. Okay, if the ethics is not there, everything would be illegal and all jol will happen. So how to reduce this ethics? For reducing it, first of all, I'll assess all the needs and all the resources which are required. I'll assess what risk is going on in my organization, and by doing this, who would be helpful, what would be my audience, what all resources I have to provide to reduce this risk. Then I'll lay a foundation. While laying a foundation, I'll give proper training and form a system. Then I will evaluate their performance, and I'll provide all the resources which are required to reduce this risk. Okay. Third is the culture, making a culture. I'll for this I'll need employees help. I'll give information. I'll ask them to make promises and acknowledge them if they are doing good, and if they are someone is doing wrong, then I'll make them accountable. Then I'll ask them to do both personally and professionally, to carry out and make a culture. Okay, after this culture is formed, first of all I'll assess, then I'll lay my foundation, then make a culture, taking the employees help, then I'll take HR's help to keep those values. Okay, so HR will form certain policies, and in hiring orientation program workshop would be conducted, and retention process also, this training would be given, performance would be evaluated. This all HR will look on, and if someone does very good in this all areas, he would be promoted. Okay, so this would be HRs evaluate and revisit. After once I have assessed and laid foundation, made a culture and keeping those values, there are chances that it gets again and again it has to be renewed, and values are changed every year or every periodically. So for that I'll have to take the follow up risk assessment. I'll have to do what all risk are getting new and what all risk are added. Also the external organization, what all they are following, I have to keep on updating myself and as a for my company. So I'll have to reevaluate and revisit. Okay, so this way I can reduce the risk of my company, ethics risk. So we have finished a 17.4. It was very easily done, but if when you'll go through the study note, theory is very difficult to understand, but I have made it in very simple language. So do like and share my videos, and also subscribe if you're not subscribed. And also the next part will cover 17.5 and finish off.